All right. Hello and welcome. My name is Doyle Buehler, and this is the Wikibrands Collective Webcast Reinvent series, episode 1, where we're going to be talking about brands. I've got 3 amazing people as part of the panel today, Sean Moffitt, Keri Smith, and myself, who we'll all get to meet very, very shortly. So what is the Wikibrands Collective? We're basically Wikibrands Collective, is disrupting the professional services game by becoming one of the first to build an on-demand business transformation company that helps clients anticipate and build better futures for business. We're blending insights, predictions, and debates from seasoned pros who not only think about this stuff, but actually do it as well. The Wikibrands Collective webcast that you're watching now is the Transformation Think Tank panel discussing the core issues businesses face every day, and every episode is different, but we're focused on 5 core topics that will get companies to their next growth chapter. So today we're talking about how to reinvent yourself as a brand in the face of a world that is massively changing. So let's meet our amazing guest. We have Keri Smith. Keri, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Doyle.
Yeah, my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am the founder of Toot Suite, which is a Calgary-based consulting firm. And our mission is to help our clients make lasting and substantial improvements in their business. And we do that by helping them make better decisions more quickly and hopefully that are executed more effectively.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Keri. And Sean, my co-host, really, because he does almost every show. Well, he does every show with me. So yeah you're my co-host, Sean. Tell us a bit about yourself. Are you there, Sean? Hello. Oh, I think we lost Sean again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, what's going on, Sean? You got a bad connection. It's not my fault this time.
Doyle, I don't know if it's me. You're hearing Doyle, Keri?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Sean.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna bow out again. Maybe get more reliable. Maybe it's me over here, but I doubt it. Do we want to just
drop off?
Get out of here. Stay on, guys, and I'll come back on.
All right. Okay. But I could hear him.
Yeah, I could hear him too.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't turn his volume up.
Yeah, that's on mute. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wait for Sean for a few minutes and kind of go from there. But
no worries.
Yeah. So Toot Suite. How did you come up with that name? Actually, that's kind of cute.
Yeah. So I've worked in a number of different global marketing agencies, and the struggle that I always had is that you can never get anything done quickly. And that was always clients' biggest struggle with us. So I felt that Toot Suite sort of spoke to what I do and what clients actually want. They just want it done. So. And
for those who aren't French, what does Toot Suite mean?
It means quickly, get it done fast.
Very quick. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, it's a cute little name. Cool. I'll see if I can get Sean back on. So hang on. All right, there you go. Hello. I can hear you.
Okay, let's do this then.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're right into the introductions. I got to know Keri a little bit more. So tell us about you, Sean, the co-host here.
As you know, managing director of Wikibrands. I've built this group of 80 of us now that are wickedly smart people that are all trying to change the whole game of professional services and provide kind of an on-demand approach to consulting and agency work and software and technology and a whole bunch of different things.
No, fantastic. And it's turning out to be quite the organization as well, as we kind of spread out around the world and that sort of thing. As I mentioned, my name is Doyle Buehler. I'm normally based out of Australia. I'm in the jungle right now, but I run a strategic digital consultancy for companies ready to scale as well. So, Sean, can you give us a quick intro to the topic?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm probably most comfortable, brands. We're going to talk about brands today. I find typically when you get into the back half of December, everybody starts thinking about what just happened and what are we looking forward to. So I think this will be kind of take on the persona of the future of brands. And so, I'm looking forward to it. Keri and I have just recently become colleagues to each other. So I thought we would bring some of our freshest talent into our webcast here and see what Calgary and Keri have to think about the matter.
Yeah, no, cool, excellent. Well, so I mean, with the topic of brands, like there's sometimes they don't feel tangible, kind of thing, in terms of how we develop them or how we actually start them. But is branding an art or a science? Like what's behind a brand besides the logo, of course?
Yeah, besides the logo, exactly. And I would argue that it's definitely an important combination of both. But I would say more and more in this day and age that we're seeing companies built a lot, or we're seeing brands built a lot more scientifically. And I mean, if we look back to the 90s when marketers were spending, unprecedented sums of money, but then, sort of later discovered that more wasn't better. And a lot of the promotional efforts that they were, putting forward were failing. And they weren't necessarily seeing a lot more growth in the market. And now that we have this wealth of information on buying patterns and sophisticated analytics and tools to be able to assess, I think there's a lot more opportunity for us to be building brands more scientifically. And the ones that are doing it well are succeeding more, for sure.
And just to step back a bit, how do you define a brand then?
Well, I mean, for me, I think a brand is everything that you feel or know about a company. It's more than the logo. And I think more and more it's how the customer sort of views themselves as part of that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And honestly, I think a lot of us not everybody, but a lot of businesses kind of get caught up in the logo of the business, feeling that that's their brand, but it goes so much far in depth to that. Sean, what do you think? Like art or science?
Oh God, there's a war right now on people who believe one or the other, I think, right? One of our most recent studies, we asked the question, what are the traits of the future for brands and customers or customer-led organizations? Number one was smarter and data-driven. So you think, oh, okay, they've won the war. Number two was authentic and human. So It's almost like this yin and yang of how to build a brand. And so I'm a big fan of anybody that has a perfectly balanced left and right brain is probably ideally suited for building a brand, because they don't, to this point anyway, you can't really mint one or the other as your focus. But I do agree with Keri's earlier point that, I was appalled by being a marketer in the early 90s and just seeing the level of spent on things without a lot of rigor. And we're talking one of the best companies in the world, not spending as much rigor as they should have in terms of trying to figure out whether their stuff was working or not. So I think 20 years hence, it's probably a much more rigorous discipline than it was back then.
So how do you know, Sean, you made an interesting point, but you say, equal balance left and right. How do you know if you are equal balance? Like there are some really good brands out there, and then there's some really bad brands. So are they not quite balanced or what?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think people get tribal about this too, right? If I think about, who would say I'm a data smarter driven type of person, you've got different vernacular being used nowadays that is probably marketing, but they're calling it something different. You've got growth hackers, you've got demand generators. Like those are the people that I go, you do that clinical analytical stuff really well. It's almost like they're under the car hood just tweaking stuff. But ask them what a brand is about, and they're, many of them are hopeless. Like they don't know what the story of the brand is or the narrative. They just know if I put this headline out, it's going to deliver 22% traction, which has a lot of benefit, but in the holistic scene of a brand is not really the whole piece of it. And then you got this other group of people over here that are great storytellers and are highly creative. And we love those people, and authentic. And we love those people because that's such a scarcity nowadays to find that group of people. But ask them, you spent $2 million on that ad campaign, did it work? And you're met with crickets. So each one has their benefits and challenges. I don't know, Keri, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I sort of see it as a combination. And I think that marketers have to have that forward-looking segmentation. But we also need to have that really precise understanding of how our brand is meeting, our customers' needs. So it has to be both. And that human connection to the brand and to the customer is core to that. But we have to be able to measure it as well.
And so, yeah, that's a great point. But how do you actually measure it, right? How do strong brands beat the market? Are they measuring it? Are they going by their gut? Are they, doing specific things?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's always been hugely debatable, and is something that everybody has tried to quantify. But what I do know is that however these brands are getting this right, I believe it's Interbrand that puts out, that ranking every year on the most valuable brands. And if you looked at a portfolio of the top 40 brands that are ranked on that survey, they are able to beat the benchmark on the S&P 500, and they've done so ever since that study was published in 2000. So we know that strong brands do beat the market, but the attributes of these companies and these brands are also different, and they approach it in a different way. But we know that they definitely do beat the market.
Yeah, and so what are these attributes then?
Is that back to you, Keri, in terms of the attributes of the Interbrand or the study?
Or Sean, go for it.
Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Nice.
Well,
I don't have that list in front of me, but I would probably say that list looks very different than a decade ago. And I think the people that are probably on the top of that list have a number of things in common. They're probably web-based or have technology as a central part of what they do, which is totally different than 10 or 15 years ago. I always look at these brand studies and I go, think about if you were a Mad Men 1960s marketer, you wanted an airline, you wanted a car company, you wanted probably a consumer packaged goods. Most of those probably don't show up in the top 20 of the Interbrand list of things. So I think data-driven companies, which is like, I guess the half that we're talking about today, tech-driven companies, high growth unicorns that somehow became like the biggest part of the world, have become big on this. I think there's a portion, I'll be interested in both of your thoughts on this, but if you look at, I mentioned the rankings of what are the future brand the traits of the future. The third ranking on the list actually is an interesting one, personalization and customization. So if you look at Amazon and Facebook and Google and all of the companies that are probably in the top 10, they have a real personalization component where I am going to deliver to you what you want, when you want it, whenever you want it. And so personalization and customization is both driven by technology and data and driven by authenticity and humanness and having a genuine, intimate connection. So it's interesting. You would think that would be a tiebreaker, but it really isn't. So those are some of the traits I think might have ended up on the Interbrand list. But you've got better information on this, Keri. I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me.
Well, I pulled up the list. So I pulled up the list, and you're right. I mean, a lot of the tech brands, Apple being number one, followed by Google and Microsoft. We still see some really traditional ones like Coca-Cola, Toyota, IBM, McDonald's, Disney. So it's a mix, but definitely those tech giants are starting to rise to the top for sure. So if you look at a company like Disney, they really embody like that human connection to their customers, right? So in comparison to something like an Amazon or something like a Google, but really speaks to that customization piece, right?
Disney's like a perfectly balanced company, isn't it? They've mastered this. Like I think knowing a little bit of what they do behind the scenes, it's like amazing what Disney's able to do in terms of packaging that sense of wonderment and happiness, but still doing it in a way that's very, very, just very sped up in terms of technology.
Yeah. And very innovative as well.
Yeah.
So should we all be like Disney then? Is that kind of the brand to aspire to?
Well, I don't think it would hurt. Why not? Yeah. Yes.
But I can't draw cartoons.
No, it's no. There are a few companies that I just marvel at their ability to reinvent themselves over and over. Any company out there that still thrives 50, 60 years after they've been founded have probably gone through 3 or 4 evolutions of what they have, right? And Disney's one of them that I just go, I don't know who inside that company was the driving force, but every single generation they seem to be up to speed with what the new world wants. I think if you even take a shorter window of time, Netflix, right? Yeah. Netflix as a brand is incredible. They've gone through 3 or 4 different iterate period that if they had just stuck with mailing out CDs as a mail order company, we wouldn't be talking about Netflix today. And yet they've successfully morphed into, we're a streaming company, and now they produce more, I guess they're still nominated for Emmys. I think they are, has most Emmy awards. So they're now an entertainment content company too. So.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and they're making some amazing programming. Really, they're content creators when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
They're not just rebroadcasting, regurgitating other people's content. They've decided that that's part of their brand, is how to produce great stories and how to tell these stories as well. The channel, I think, is secondary. It's how do they actually get those fantastic branding stories out there.
Agreed.
What how do we can we be more like Disney? How can we be more like Netflix? How does the corporate world, around the world decide, hey, let's sort of get on track here? What should we be doing?
I'll take a crack at it. I mean, I think standardly marketing has two different types of senior type of people. One that are just a really intrinsic part of the organization. They sit on the executive teams. They have the ear of their CEO. And you have another group that really they're viewed as a service operation inside the company. They don't sit at the corporate table. They probably take their dictate from a chief operating officer or something and are one level removed. So I think if I look at just dialing back to when we wrote a book 8 years ago, and when I look at the successful groups nowadays, chief marketing officer, or whatever you want to call that person, has the ear of their CEO. They are focused not just on what they're communicating and like the, how we say stuff, but they're also focused on how you do stuff. And I think successful marketers nowadays certainly have three things that they have a healthy hand in. One, yes, brand communications, PR, content, all that kind of good stuff. Two, though, the customer experience, like who in a company is in control of the customer experience? I don't think sales has that full nexus of different factors that factor into a customer experience. So I find marketers that have that within their bailiwick are really important. And then one that gets totally overlooked when you think about marketers is, what about the employee experience? Like, what's the culture of the company all about? And can a marketer have an influence on not only what we're doing externally with the customer, but how we're doing it internally as a group of people too? And I think HR has a big role in that, but I think marketers do as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And almost from what you've described there, Sean, you're talking culture in a lot of aspects, right? Or are you?
It's talked technology before. We're talking brands and marketing in this discussion. Culture eats strategy and brand for breakfast 9 out of 10 times.
But the way you structured like a company,
I've been in companies before where it's just like, I know this is the right thing to do, but if I can't convince the 1,000 other people around me that, or at least 600 of the 1,000 other people around me that this is a good thing to do, you're probably not going to be able to do it credibly.
Yeah. So there's a huge human factor in here as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think, understanding for marketers need to understand what their customers care about, and then be able to tailor their programs to meet those needs. And I think so often where we see marketing falling down is when they don't really have a good understanding or ownership around what their customers are looking for from them. And that makes it really difficult, as you mentioned, Sean, to get a seat at the table and be able to communicate to the executive why you shouldn't be doing something. And so if it's always core to what it is that the customers that your business is trying to serve, I think marketers can be a lot more successful.
And who should be taking charge of this role then within an organization?
I maybe 5 years ago would have said it should be the marketing person, but I actually think that it's a combination of people throughout the organization. I think traditionally marketing and sales have been siloed from each other. And I think there's a role for both of those to play. I think on the content, on the design, as well as on the operations side, sort of all of the pieces that Sean spoke about play a really critical role in sort of deciding how we own that customer relationship. Because it's not just marketing that has touch points with the customer, it's everyone in the business. And so I do agree that it's every employee's responsibility to understand how to connect with their customer.
Right. But I guess should there be a leader then sort of conveying this information and sort of creating that structure so that the employees can follow it?
Yeah, and I think where I've seen it most successful, and it might be my limited view, having mostly worked my career in Calgary, but where I've seen it work the best in businesses here is from the operations officer. And typically it's because, we don't see a lot of CMOs in Calgary, but we see a lot of COOs. And so if that individual has a marketing bent and understands the value of it, I find that they can be a pretty incredible driver in that space.
So that's interesting. Why would
one Calgary company that, so I'm going to play in your playground here or whatever. Yeah. I was always impressed with WestJet. They had a guy named Richard Bartram who we interviewed for a book eons back. And his role was the chief marketing and culture officer, if I remember correctly. And so I just find it interesting how they recognized early on, and WestJet, for those that don't know globally, a really interesting upstart Canadian airline that has become kind of an established brand nowadays. But I have huge embeds in terms of how the employees react with their brand. And I think even a central focus of their campaigns have been, we are employee owned and profile their own employees in the ad. So I do see this, to Doyle's point, I think you're trying to get to this, like, well, who's in charge? Yes, the brand is owned by everybody, but who really is the spiritor here?
Yeah. Who is in charge?
4 or 5 years ago, I would have been a little bit more disappointed in our function and said, look, if we continue to spit out CMOs that continue to just have faith in advertising and, are disjointed from the customer experience, I would say no. I'm willing to be convinced nowadays that it is probably the CMO's role, but I've heard it in other companies called growth officer, the chief, customer officer, whatever the title is. I think there does need to be a central rallying point.
Yeah, so somebody who can kind of take charge and move things forward. So quick question, would WestJet be Disney of the airline industry, or are they close?
I would say their Christmas videos are, that's for sure.
I haven't seen have they got their new one out yet, Keri? Every single year I wait for this thing to go.
Yeah, it's
I'll attach a few links when we post this webcast to some of the great ones from previous years, but have they posted this year's yet?
Yeah, Blue Santa, he's back at it.
Okay.
What was that about, Keri?
Oh, they were connecting people, like friends from far away, and had planned these trips and connecting people in cities where they hadn't seen each other. It was great. It was really good.
There's actually a TV show in Australia that actually, or was it Canada? No. It's that Canadian show where they interview people who are connecting with, loved ones and relatives from around the world, which is really cool because there's so many stories there. And really, I believe that, a lot of branding is about that inherent story that you're telling.
For sure.
So what, in today's sort of politically charged climate, what happens to brands when they jump on one train or the other, or should they?
It's interesting. Like this is coming out of our customer zeitgeist study. This was the one thing that marketers and people in the customer space were completely split on, right? So I'll be curious what we all think on this call today. Do you take a stand in this politically charged world? Half the marketers said, no, it's too polarizing. Like, sure, you'll have half the people love you, but the half that don't love you will hate you forever. And then the other people were like, no, like both employees, customers, they are shopping based on values. Of course, you should be taking a position. Maybe I'm showing my risk aversion. I'm not too sure, but I think it's a dangerous world. I think if you're doing it for clicks and news, I think it probably isn't a good thing. If you're it probably is a good thing. I will go down thinking that the whole Kaepernick thing and Nike and the kneeling for the anthem thing, in the final analysis is probably not going to be great for Nike. Like, I don't know if they will be able to measure how much traction they lost, but I think it's such a polarizing debate. And Nike's known for jumping on these topics and then leaving that topic tomorrow to produce like a $300 shoe with, there's a superficiality sometimes in terms of what Nike does. So that's a classic example of, did you do it for all the right reasons as a strategy, or was it really just it made sense as a campaign and it's a one-off and people will hold that against you down the road?
Yeah, in Nike's case, they seem to do that from time to time as well, as they pick a side and kind of go with it. I mean, at some point you have to sort of ask yourself, are you a customer to everybody? And I would suspect that a lot of businesses aren't a client or service for everybody. So it allows them to sort of focus a little bit more. Could it be polarizing? Yeah, probably. But not everybody is necessarily their customer anyways. What do you think, Keri?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I love it when I see a brand take a stand and take a risk. And, it may not be something that I agree with, but I sort of commend them for going after it. And to your point, Doyle, they're not trying to appease everyone. And so I think that, it's a risk. But I would assume that it's probably pretty calculated and they have a good understanding of who their customer is. And are willing to make that bet.
Yeah, and sometimes they win and sometimes they lose.
Yeah, and I
was an issue though, guys, that you were dead set against. Like, it's great when we believe in the issue, which I think in general a lot of us believe in, at least here in Canada, in terms of like the public expression that Kaepernick had. There's a lot of social ills. He was causing some attention on that. But what if it was an issue that you really truly believed in, and this brand that didn't have a big part of your life was taking the other side? I think I'm going to play the contrarian here going, wow, like I'm a huge fan of Tropicana orange juice, but if I found out that they were paying workers $3 an hour to pick oranges,
right,
and they were doing this as a big part of their thing, and I would probably go, ooh, I might want to reconsider that. Is my love of their pulp-free orange juice every morning so much more than my hatred of bad labor practice? I don't know.
Yeah. But that causes change too, right? Like that, if there's enough of Sean's out there that feel the same way, then at some point they will realize that and potentially do something about it, or keep on going, bulldoze through everything.
I can't actually think of a brand that I've boycotted, to be honest. Like I don't have any that are coming to mind that I've, made a conscious decision that I will not buy that because I don't believe in something that they've done. Yeah, I can't think of one.
You'll be aware of their social ills, right? You're close enough to the industry to know what goes on the inside. You've boycotted nothing.
Nothing.
I boycotted one brand.
Yeah.
The non-GMO project. I find that quite misleading in their marketing and how they're presenting that. So any product that has the non-GMO project label on it, I will not purchase. And
this goes back to our webcast from last week where we talked about, one of the biggest things in the world is whose truth is right.
Yeah.
Right.
The whole polarized view of the world. It's affecting branding as well. Like, are you a Fox person or are you a CNN person? Are you, I think in the Nike debate, it's like, are you a Nike person or an Under Armour person? Both of them have very opposing viewpoints. So.
Yeah, no, it's quite the a lot of areas that we can cover there. So quickly, let's wrap up then. Just your final words on branding. What can businesses do to help, or to get them going, pointed in the right direction? What would you suggest?
Well, I think my recommendation and often what I help clients with is identifying what customers care about and then helping them decide what the most valuable touch points are. So how do we want to reach those customers and how do we want to map out what that journey looks like that's the most cost effective, that's going to work within their budget, and that it's going to help them build loyalty with those customers. So I think it's mapping out that journey and mapping out those touch points.
So understanding what the customer really, really wants.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sean, what about you? what can...
Yeah, there's a little bit of groupthink going on here as well, because I totally agree with Keri. Of course, I agree with Keri. She knows so much, but I think having a good handle on what's going on inside your company, delivering that experience, being able to portray that experience in communication, being able to affect it is really important. And I think the only thing I would add to that is I find the two biggest challenges marketers have nowadays are at both ends of the poles. It's like we are in such an attention-starved world. You know, what will get your customers' attention and awareness, and for the right reasons, not like the YouTube vampire thing where you show a whole bunch of videos and nobody remembers your brand. Like, how can you get their attention is the second biggest challenge. And the biggest challenge, I think, is how do you retain your customers, right? And I think this is a place where I think lazy marketers probably take for granted the fact they have a customer base. And we realize, you know, we've seen it time and time again, people will switch over so easily nowadays to the second or third brand that, you know, if you just spent 30% of your time on how do I make my existing database of customers love me, not only will they stay more loyal and not have a leaky bucket, they'll also advocate for your cause, which is probably in this world more important than any kind of message I can get out in advertising. Like, can I deliver word of mouth through some of my best influencers and customers? So that in a long-winded way, I think it would be my mandate for the future marketer.
Fantastic. No, that's good. And yeah, from my perspective, it's really, you know, defining your brand so that you can actually tell that consistent brand story throughout across all your channels and all the different media and that sort of thing that you produce as well, because that's super important. People are looking for that story as well, which is critical here. All right, any other sort of comments or last minute interesting ideas or insights that you wanted to share? Or?
Well, one thing I would say is that I think it can be really overwhelming for marketers. There's so many channels, there's so many ways to get your message out.
Yeah.
And so I would just say that, you know, there's no need to get overwhelmed, and you don't have to be everywhere trying to do everything. Once you've sort of honed in on your strategy and what story you're trying to tell and who you're trying to reach, it gets a lot more manageable. So yeah, that would be my one last word.
Cool. Sean?
It's funny. I'll give you an anecdote. I've got a client workshop tomorrow, and we probably have 5 marketers in the group and about 40 people that are part of this company group that are talking about the future of their brand. And we sent out a survey ahead of time, and there was at least 6 or 7 people that are in the non-marketing group that are like, I am totally not comfortable with this. I don't understand what this brand thing is. Isn't this a marketing thing? And I cannot go out of my way more to say, no, it isn't. I think for too long we've let marketers just run the show in terms of branding, and it's like, oh, that's what they do over there. No, not anymore anyway. And so I do have a capital B in terms of what a brand is all about. And I think it operates across the entire operation. And I will defy you, and there's a whole bunch of digital tech people nowadays that say branding's not important anymore. You know what? It's all about technology and it's all about this. No, I say, you know what? 90% of Facebook's value is either captured in its data or captured in its brand. Yeah. If tomorrow somebody launched something called Doyle Book,
I like that.
I don't know if we would flock to it. And part of that is, and Facebook's probably not a great example because it is a brand that's taken some bruises over the last year, but 85% of the world is a brand right now. So their value is very precarious, but their value is substantially there. So I'll leave it with that in terms of getting your book.
Yeah, and we can go into a whole other, well, and actually that's why this is a series, right? So this is Reinvention series. So we've got lots of topics to talk about. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks, Sean, Keri, and myself, Doyle. We have some amazing shows coming up as well on the Wikibrands Collective webcast. The URL is on the screen as well, and we'll put it in the comments coming up. So if you learned something, please like and share, or simply ask us a question, and we'll respond as quickly as possible. Thank you so much, and we will see everybody online.